There's Trinidad and Tobago. One country, two very different islands, two very different places. One island is what you expected when you arrived wearing flip-flops and a Hawaiian shirt all greased up with cocoa butter. The other ain't about that at all.
I took a walk through this beautiful world, felt the cool rain on my shoulder, found something good in this beautiful world. I felt the rain getting colder. Sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la.
If I had the choice, I would choose to live back when Calypso brought the news. If I had the choice, I would choose to live right back when Calypso brought the news. No more reporters, no anchormen, no recorder, no pad and pen, no nosy cameras to point and shoot, no red ink to cross out the truth.
Many visitors come to Trinidad for one thing and one thing only, Carnival, which locals say is the biggest party on earth. A pre-Lenten festival of costumes, food, copious drinking, and the kind of dancing you better be good at before trying in public. It's almost 2 months before the party officially starts, but here in Trinidad's capital, Port of Spain, the carnival season has already begun.
I thought it was a pity that you went here during the peak of the carnival season.
I'll tell you something really terrible about myself. Like, I've never been to Mardi Gras, Carnival in Rio, any kind of carnival. Like, large numbers of strangers swarming through the streets, dancing in uniforms.
Doesn't do it for you?
No, some of my deepest fears are having to dance or sing in public. Either of these would be terrifying. So this seems like a situation where that might come up, you know?
Queen's Park Savannah will be the epicenter of Carnival. But tonight, it's still Trinidad's street food center. My dinner companion for some fried snapper is LaShawn Prescott, who's here to tell me about two essential skills necessary for the proper enjoyment of local nightlife. Turns out I am very good at one and suck epically at the other.
What is liming?
Liming is like our version of hanging out,
right.
You know. You're with friends, you're chilling, that's liming.
Is there alcohol involved? Chances are, if you're liming,
probably.
you're sipping.
I mean, you can lime without beer.
What about the rum? I haven't had any rum here. How does one drink rum here, and which rum should I be drinking? Does one drink it on the rocks?
One drinks it with Coke.
With Coke?
Yeah, rum and Coke.
But the rum's supposed to be really, really good here.
Yeah.
What do I mess it up with Coke for? Okay, so we've established what liming is. What is whining?
The technical term is the circumduction of the hips. And it's a style of dance. And if you're not used to the culture, you don't understand what it means, you can interpret it the wrong way. When you see it for the first time, you can think it's seductive, you can think it's sexual. But people can whine on each other and not really mean anything. I can whine on you and it doesn't mean that I want to take you home, you know? It's something that's really about freedom of expression of self. And it's something that crosses ages, races, ethnicities, especially during carnival time. You see people from high status and people who are, you know, lower class. They both whine together. You know, the barriers are no longer there. It's all just a mix of all the different ethnicities and stuff.
The faces you see in the streets are African, Indian, Chinese, Middle Eastern in features, and every shade of mix in between. This patchwork of ethnic identities and colors is a direct legacy of Trinidad's colonial past. Located at the southern end of the Caribbean Sea, 7 miles offshore from Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago have long been important ports of call. Like a lot of islands in the area, everybody's been through here at one point or another. The usual European hunters of fortune. The Spanish came looking for gold. Then the Dutch, French, and British took their turns at the real money of the time, sugar. An economy built on plantation labor and slavery. Finally, the island hit the big money. Oil. A pair of seemingly unrelated events had a big impact on the island's musical culture. During World War II, the U.S. Navy built an oil depot to supply overseas strategic needs. And decades earlier, the ruling British had banned drums made from traditional-style animal skins after a series of riots they insisted had been inspired by African drumming. One improvises in such circumstances, and all those oil drums were repurposed. This is Phase 2, one of only 11 large steel bands taking part in the worldwide competition Panorama that happens in a few weeks. Winner gets 150 grand. They've taken home the prize 7 times, in no small part due to this man, Lennox Bugsy Sharp. The rehearsal space is called a panyard, and if you're lucky, somebody nearby is making this: corn soup, split pea broth, dumplings, and of course, corn. Kim Johnson is a local journalist and historian who knows about this stuff. It's far more complex than you think.
Wow. I gotta tell you, that was incredible. I've heard a lot of, little steel drum bands around the Caribbean, but nothing like that. All percussion, right? 100%.
Yes.
How did your interest in this develop?
I grew up here. Later, I became a writer. I discovered there were just hundreds of stories. Because in the early days, up until the 60s, the steel bands were partly like street gangs. They would fight with one another. The West Side Story,
Right.
kind of thing. The steel bands doubled as that. So I just got fascinated by tracking down all of these pioneers and getting their stories and how they got involved.
I'll be 64 years this year. I played music since a little kid.
Yeah, these stories that he grew up with them in one of his backyards. So when he was about 3 years old, he was going out playing with them.
Bugsy composes his pieces by layering different types of drums on top of each other. The engine room, made of unpitched percussion, lays down the groove. Next, a section of 6 bass pans drops a bass line. The guitar and cello pans add harmonies that sound like strumming. And the frontline pans play the melody. The result, a symphonic wall of sound.
I would like someday to marry this with a big orchestra, symphony orchestra. Yeah, Anthony, that's my dream.
It's because of the music, Africans survived slavery. Not just physically, survived psychically. It's a question of just improvising instruments.
Holy crap. Okay. This is a challenge. People keep coming up to me in the street. The first thing they say is, have you had doubles yet? Did you get a doubles yet? So, I'm eating doubles, all right?
Doubles are a Caribbean take on the Indian Chana Bhatura. Two floppy, tender pieces of soft Indian-style bread loaded with a wet heap of curried chickpeas, pepper sauce, and mango.
Structurally, I have questions here. I don't want seepage. Seepage is never good. Somebody uses seepage in a sentence, nothing good is going to happen. I'm going to suck the paper. I don't think there's meat in here. But I still like it. It's really, really good.
A half-century after Trinidad became independent of the British Empire, there are surprisingly few architectural remnants. But the face of the country and its population were forever changed when slavery ended in 1834, and Great Britain found itself in need of cheap, if not free, labor to work the plantations. They found it in East India.
At the abolition of slavery, the plantation owners desperately needed to find labor to fill the void created by the slaves who turned their backs on the plantation for obvious reasons. And they looked around, they tried Portuguese, they tried Chinese, they tried many communities until they found out that the Indians were the best suited because they were already planting sugarcane in India successfully.
Between the end of outright slavery and the beginning of World War I, 150,000 indentured servants were brought here from India. Indentured servitude is slavery by another name. The people brought here from India were bought, sold, and treated like property. But we're told that if they completed 5 years of often back-breaking labor, they would be set free. Noon on a Monday, ordinarily a work day, but today the Singh family is having a boys' river wine. Chand, the patriarch, is a retired diplomat. His son, Keshav, is a music producer. Uncle Charlie is in charge of the cooking.
How far back does the family go?
This family's gone back to 1845.
1845. Those were hard times. Life was not good for the family in India.
There was poverty, there was wars and all sorts of things. And yes, they came into real hard times here because the indentured immigrant from India replaced the liberated slaves, and the conditions were not very different.
Difficult times, but it was a means to social mobility and away from their situation in India.
We are products, descendants of that generation.
Start with one whole duck, hack into pieces, rub with lime juice, season with hot peppers, garlic, and the tropical herb shadow beni. Add generous helpings of masala and curry powder. Marinate for a bit, then sear in oil, then simmer in coconut milk until tender.
Man, that's good. That's really good. We better kill some more ducks, because that is...
When we have it like this, when we're drinking before the actual meal, it's like an appetizer, but we call it cutters because it cuts The alcohol.
Right, I'm sobering up as we speak. So, look, you're all Trinidadian.
Yes.
Trinidad first, Indian second.
Yes, I mean, when the Indians came, 160-something years ago, there was a disconnect with the motherland. Most of these Indians were promised that they were going for a short tenure to make a lot of money and then return home. They gave return passage or land. So when the first Indians took the option to go back, couldn't find their families.
Right.
And those who found the families were rejected because they said, you guys abandoned us for 5 years.
Wow.
You may as well take that 5 acres of land and stay there. So there's no closure to descendants like us who have not found any connection between our families in India.
Soft paratha dough is cooked on a massive tawa and slathered with ghee. But here, just as it's reaching peak flakiness, it gets a beating.
Here they call it bust-up shot, which means burst-up shirt.
Burst-up shirt.
Because they make a huge paratha and then they whack it with 2 sticks.
Oh, okay. I thought they were talking about what's going to happen on my shirt. What about skin color? Look, you look at Jamaica, you look at Haiti. I don't get what they say, but what they do is it's still a powerful determinant of where your status is in the power structure.
Yeah.
Does that exist here?
It's not something that has consumed our imagination. Being Trinidadian is not necessarily color tone oriented, but it's more, I think what people really revel and enjoy is the common experiences. The food is the glue that binds a society together. In spite of the problem that we have here, we are still one of the most harmonious, multi-ethnic societies in the world. And the multi-ethnicity of Trinidad, the multi-religious tolerance, are examples for the world to follow. We are a small island, and if you don't learn to live together, you have to live in the sea.
Right?
Why? Trinidad is nice. Trinidad is a paradise. Trinidad is nice. Trinidad is a paradise. Now,
My theory was always the whole world was going to look like Trinidad in 100 years. Anyway.
Great world.
Well, I think so. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Trinidad is nice. Trinidad is a paradise. Why Trinidad is nice. Trinidad is a paradise. Thank you.
It started in 1898, more than 100 years ago. Most of the Christians were being persecuted by the Turks. So there was an exodus of Christians leaving Syria. They boarded the ships from Beirut, and as long as it was heading west, they thought they were going to America. Many of our parents landed in Trinidad, and that's when we started. That's the first generation.
Just outside of Port of Spain, Bayshore is one of the priciest neighborhoods in the country. I'm here as a guest of the Sabga Abouds, a successful family of Lebanese Syrians.
Look at this, that's amazing.
Beirut.
Yes, like no arak.
I do indeed.
Would you like arak?
A little ice and some water would
Oh,
be
that'd be
perfect.
perfect. My drink of choice is Grey Goose and coconut water.
The family's story is not an uncommon one. The first members came here during the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, arriving penniless. They worked their way up as textile merchants and branched out to run businesses that sell everything from medical equipment to real estate.
And how large is the community now in Trinidad?
A little under 5,000.
That's still a fairly small percentage of the...
Extremely small. Actually, we are the smallest ethnic group in Trinidad.
But the most powerful, almost the most powerful. Smallest but the most powerful, huh?
That's not bragging. Syrian Lebanese merchant class are generally seen as the elite.
Actually, I'm very big in the food business here. I have 120 restaurants. Call me the Starbucks of the Caribbean.
I can't tell you how happy I am about this meal. I love the food.
This is raw kibbe.
Best raw kibbe you'll ever eat in your life.
Yeah, this is the fried version, which is stuffed with the nice stuffing. And then we have the typical hummus. This is muhamra, which is made from chili paste and ground nuts, the best muhamra in Trinidad. Then we have falafel patty. We have grilled wings with garlic, which is every Arab loves. Fish in tahini sauce. You ever had that?
Yeah, beautiful.
I'm going to pour some olive oil over our lovely things, because olive oil is a must.
I mean, and how closely do people stay in contact with family or relatives back in Lebanon or Syria? If at all.
Not very much.
We are Trinidadians too. As much as we are Lebanese and Syrian, we are Trinidadians. Trinidad has been good to us, and we know it.
But life is good here in Trinidad. Life is very good. But there is a measure of concern in the fact that at one time we used to have a huge middle class, which was a sort of a security in terms of any possible conflict between the haves and the have-not. But now that's eroding, and they're getting poorer. So they're starting to get angry.
What do you think the biggest danger is right now?
Civil commotion.
Civil commotion.
Yeah. We have a crime problem related to gangs, gang warfare.
Gang warfare.
It ain't all good for everybody here by a long shot. Trinidad, with a population of only 1.3 million people, had 460 murders last year, giving Port of Spain a per capita murder rate higher than Detroit, Oakland, or Chicago. Mark Besant covers the subjects of drug and gang-related violence as an investigative journalist.
People want you dead.
You could say that.
Who wants you dead, do you think?
Well, 2 years ago, I did a piece about the state prosecutor, Dana Sital, who was shot dead.
When State Prosecutor Dana Sital left the Mapao car park just before midnight on May 3rd, she had no inclination it would be her last moments alive.
When Mark began to look into the murder of the prosecutor, an informant told him there was a $20,000 contract on his life.
They had people following me over a period of time, some law enforcement officers and so on. So my company put me on a plane. I stayed under an assumed name for about 3 months in a location outside of Trinidad.
Generally speaking, when people like that want you dead, they get you. Why are you back?
I guess, to quote from a great U.S. journalist, Walter Cronkite, it's not what we want people to know, it's what they need to know. We need to have people held accountable for certain things. With drug trafficking being one of the biggest businesses in the world, Trinidad continues to be a major transshipment point for drug dealers to get that product out to North America and to Europe. So you find now the explosion of violence that we have is for those that are involved locally with the drug trafficking, this fight for territory.
An estimated $3.5 billion worth of narcotics move through the Caribbean each year. Trinidad's porous borders, busy port, proximity to Venezuela, and the inevitable corruption that comes with numbers and threats like that make it, unfortunately, an ideal transshipment point.
How bad is high-level corruption alleged to be?
Fairly deep. I think that the complicity comes across the law enforcement agencies, customs, police officers, even at higher levels.
And with corruption, poverty, hopelessness, add some radical ideology to that, and Trinidad has proved relatively fertile ground for the recruitment of ISIS fighters and terrorists.
It's quite alarming, Trinidadian nationals being one of the highest in the region, going to Syria. And it's over 100 on a list, an FBI list. They feel that it's the calling from ISIS that they need to go.
So what's the future look like? What do you think?